Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Domino Effect, in which we discuss the intersection of our community's top social issues with legal issues impacting us all. I'm Jessica Thomas, a Florida family law attorney and your host. Our topic of discussion for this episode will focus on the dynamics surrounding immigration law. While this may be a difficult topic to discuss, we want to focus on the resources provided by our community partners and the Legal Aid Society. Despite the current political challenges, many of our residents here in Orange County come from so many different cultural backgrounds, ranging from South America to countries in Asia. Today, we are joined by two special guests who will provide pertinent information about the immigration process. Remember, perpetual goodness goes a long way, and every person, company, and organization have the ability to positively impact our community. We each have a responsibility to lend a helping hand when possible and continue to maintain the cycle of development and improvement in our Orange County community. It's the Domino Effect. Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode. It is a privilege for me to introduce our first guest. Not only is she an amazing attorney, but she is the founder of Capella Immigration Law, as well as the sitting president of the Legal Aid Society Board of Trustees. Camilla has also served on the board of the Hispanic Bar Association of Central Florida and was the chair of the Civil Rights Law Committee of the Orange County Bar Association. Camilla, I'm so happy that you could join us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start from the beginning. Tell me what you do. Tell me about Camilla.
So I'm originally from South America. I was born and raised in Colombia, South America, Bogota. I came to the States, and that journey is what inspired me to become an immigration attorney. I've been practicing immigration law in the community for over 13 years now. It's my passion. I love what I do. I love serving the community. And that journey of coming to the States is what inspired me to get to where I am today.
Now, when you talk about that journey, was it a positive one? Or it looks, she's like, here it comes, Jessica. Was it a positive journey or a negative journey?
I mean, it's a challenging journey, like it is for all immigrants that come to this country. It's a transition. I was very lucky that we did have the help of a nonprofit organization that helped me and my family go through the process. It was right before September 11, which things changed drastically after that date, and the whole world changed, but for immigration purposes as well. So it was challenging, but very rewarding. It inspired me. It taught me a lot. It made me grow very fast. And I'm just happy that we went through that as a family.
Now, from that experience and having the help of that nonprofit, what's the nexus between what you do now and your service of the community through the Legal Aid Society as a nonprofit organization?
So because it was a nonprofit organization, it was actually Catholic charities that helped us out. Seeing the difference that it makes having an attorney, having legal advice, having somebody to counsel you and walk you through that process, I think that was the difference between being able to stay in this country, eventually become a legal permanent resident, obtain U.S. citizenship. That made the difference for my family. So seeing that, understanding that, I wanted to pay it forward. I wanted to be part of a nonprofit organization that helped other families come to this country and be able to stay and legalize their immigration status.
Now, you said having an attorney helped you. I don't think I knew that you could do the immigration process on your own. Are there people who are pro se, meaning without an attorney, who go through the immigration process?
Unfortunately, most people are pro se in the immigration process. In the immigration field, there is the notarios. So notarios in Central America and in South America are people who are attorneys and then become a public notary.
Okay.
But you have to be an attorney first, okay? It's actually very difficult to become a notario in our countries. As we know, it's not that challenging to become a notario here.
Right.
And public notary, you take a class, many times you can do it online, you pay a fee, and within, I think it's 5 to 6 hours, you can become a public notary. So when people come to this country and they see all the signs that say public notary, they assume that these people have a legal background, that they do have that understanding, that knowledge of the law, and a lot of them hire these people. Of course, this is unlawful practice of law. Many times people don't understand that it's not just forms that you're doing for immigration purposes, that what you put on that forms, what you file with the government, can make the difference between you staying, being able to obtain a work permit, lawful permanent residence, citizenship, or being placed in removal proceedings and eventually deported.
Oh my goodness. You know, I bet a lot of people who are watching this, one, are now going to know about say it again?
Notarius.
Notarius, they're
Yeah.
going to learn, and I think that's phenomenal that you're giving that education. What about people who don't know anything about where to start for the immigration process? They have family, friends that they want to assist. How can the Legal Aid Society help them?
Well, the Legal Aid Society actually has an immigration attorney in staff. I was lucky enough to be that person back in the day. I served as the immigration attorney for the Legal Aid for 3 years. And the Legal Aid Society of our county is actually one of the very few legal aids that can help in the immigration process. Because of funding restrictions, most legal aids are not able to serve undocumented immigrants, which our legal aid does. And as you know, and I'm sure you've done this before, but they have intake several times per week. You can call the office, they can do intake. They can either take your case in office or they can refer it out to an immigration attorney willing to take your case pro bono or for free.
Now, is that what you do as well?
Yes, so
Okay.
I do serve as a pro bono attorney for the legal aid. I do have my own practice, but I practice exclusively immigration law. I don't do anything else. I do everything from naturalization cases, marriage cases, fiancé visas, investor visas. I do what is called employment-based immigration, which is when a company wants to sponsor an immigrant to come work in the States. I do removal defense, deportation proceedings as well. So everything dealing with immigration is what I concentrate on.
And you help people through legal aid as well in those same areas?
Correct, I do as well. The legal aid, of course, concentrates on certain types of immigration cases. So, for
Okay.
example, victims of crime, victims of domestic violence. There's special types of visa for people who have gone through that process or who have been victims of a crime or of domestic violence. DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which is young people that were brought to this country as children. The legal aid also handles TPS, Temporary Protected Status. So my advice would be to call the legal aid and see that whether they take the type of case that you have. If they do, they'll try their best to refer you out or take your case, as long as you meet, of course, the income guidelines.
And that's exactly going to be my next question. They should still call no matter what to see if they qualify, and if they don't, you all can still refer them to some other resources within the community.
Exactly, exactly.
Now, as far as immigration law, what's the one thing that you would say is really important for people to know as they navigate this, with or without an attorney? What's that one, if you just one nugget that you were like, please, if you are about to do an immigration case, I'm begging you.
Yes.
I know for me in family law, I'm like, just do this. What would be the one thing?
I would say plan ahead. Plan ahead. I've had so many situations where people come to my office and they say, I just sold everything in my home country. I've moved my family. I have taken kids out of school, and now we want to stay. The immigration process is very restrictive, to be honest. There's not that many options. So that's why many times when I hear people say, well, why can't they come the legal way? Well, there's actually very few ways to come into this country legally. So plan ahead. Please make sure that you consult with an attorney. Ideally with an attorney that practices immigration law exclusively, because immigration law is very complex, okay? So you have to be reading every day. Immigration laws, policies, priorities change all the time, depending on who's president, depending on who's the governor of your state may change how things are being implemented, although immigration law is federal law. So please talk to an attorney that practices immigration law. And make sure that you ask all the questions that you have and feel comfortable enough asking the attorney, do you practice immigration law? There is a lot of fraud out there as well. Don't be embarrassed to ask the attorney, where where do you have your bar license? Because immigration law is federal law. So, for example, an attorney may be licensed in New York and they can practice immigration law here in Florida. But that's okay. You can make sure that you Google the attorney, look them up online, read their reviews. With now Google reviews, you can get an idea of what type of attorney this person is.
Wow. That's really good advice. I know that I learned something. I hope everybody did. I definitely appreciate the fact that the Legal Aid Society has what other nonprofits don't as far as with undocumented and being able to give that kind of advice and resource and even point them in the right direction. I think that's phenomenal. Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Attorneys like Camilla Pachon help to improve our Orange County community, and we are thankful that she could join us today to share her thoughts. Up next, we hear from one of our legal aid staff attorneys to hear about how we can give back to our community as well. But first, let's take a quick moment to recognize our generous sponsors. We'll be back with more of the Domino Effect.
A disproportionate number of Floridians don't have access to the justice system. That's why the Florida Bar Foundation exists to bridge this gap. Their mission is to increase access for the underprivileged by funding legal services, developing innovative tools and programs, and supporting legal aid providers and the courts. Because of their efforts, they've been able to help veterans facing homelessness, children in the foster care system, men and women who survived domestic violence, and securing benefits for our elderly and disabled. Doing good for the greatest in need because everyone deserves access to justice.
Welcome back to the Domino Effect. Our next guest is someone who can help us navigate the immigration system from a different perspective. Joining us now is Anna Bernal Roberts, a Legal Aid Society staff attorney who provides legal representation to immigrant victims of domestic violence, violent crimes, and human trafficking. She also represents immigrant children who have been abused, abandoned, or neglected. Anna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start from the beginning. How did you get to the Legal Aid Society?
Okay, so in law school, I actually interned for legal aid in Fort Lauderdale. And I really, really enjoyed my time there. But I didn't really think I was going to stay with legal aid. So out of law school, I actually started working for a private attorney doing family law. And I really hated the consultation with the clients when I had to tell them that the retainer would be $3,000 or whatever it was, depending on the case, and it just never felt right to me. And so I said, I really enjoyed legal aid when I was there, and I wonder if that's my path. And so when I applied to legal aid, I didn't have to worry about, who could afford my services. I was just helping those who needed my help, and I just found it more rewarding to do so. And so that's how it started. I just didn't really ever enjoy that part of having to attach money to my services.
Tell me what made you pick immigration then, as a family law attorney who knows that stress. Tell me what made you go to immigration.
I actually started doing domestic violence at legal aid. And I did that for about 2 years. And it was very, very draining because, as you can imagine, domestic violence, it was in the middle of that process where they're trying to escape the violence. But because I am bilingual, they needed an immigration attorney at legal aid, and I would still be working with domestic violence victims, but not in the sense of obtaining injunctions, but I would be helping them through the immigration process. So I decided to give it a try. I kind of just fell into it, and I loved it. I never wanted to do anything else but immigration after that.
Wow. So you were able to learn immigration law through the Legal Aid Society?
Through legal aid, yes. Yes.
Wow. Now you mentioned, and we talked about a little bit in the intro, some of the areas of service that the Legal Aid Society provides. Tell me, ramble them off for our viewers who would want to know how can they get assistance through the Legal Aid Society within the immigration capacity.
So basically, they just have to call the main number, and they get transferred to intake, who then asks certain questions to see if they qualify for one of those cases. And then it's basically a case is opened and assigned to the immigration attorney, who then evaluates it further to determine if that's a case we can handle or in-house or refer it to a pro bono attorney. So yes, the cases you mentioned are like some of the main cases that we handle.
When you think of immigration law, and I think this is very important, what kind of pitfalls do you see people fall into that they come to you and you're like, it's too late, I can't fix X? What would you say is that huge caveat that you see in the immigration world?
Fortunately, it doesn't happen unless they're, let's say it's a TPS case.
Let's tell our viewers what TPS means.
Temporary protected status. So for temporary protected status, let's say you're from a certain country that qualifies for temporary protected status, you are given a certain period of time to register. You know, and so sometimes if they come past that time, that's an issue. Or let's say it's just not doing it soon enough. Or like if you're a VAWA client, which is the Violence Against Women Act, if you've gotten divorced and you waited past the 2-year deadline to apply, and if you come to us, then it's too late. It's just basically a timing thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you think of immigration law now, what would you say is your favorite part of what you do?
My favorite part of what I do is the end result. Because when my clients come to me, they're very, very broken, a lot of them. They don't really see a light at the end of the tunnel. And at the end, you know, I see a huge transformation in how they've been able to start working, how now they're not afraid of their abusers because they're self-supportive, their children are, you know, living in the house free from violence. And so that is really the best part, is the end result when I'm able to, you know, achieve what they needed coming in.
I think that's a great point. When you think about where people are starting that process, talk to me about, I'm a person watching this.
Right.
I need help. I've gone to the website. Is there some protection? I know sometimes, like you mentioned with domestic violence, a lot of times I'll ask people, is this a safe number for me to call back? Is this a good time that I can call? Do you all do this kind of safeguards as well if someone's a victim of human trafficking, if they're trying to get away from their abuser?
Yeah, when they first call, we always ask, is your address safe? Is your phone number safe? Is your email safe? What's our best way to contact you? And sometimes there's no way to contact them. They'd have to contact us, so we mark it on the file. Not safe, you know, so we know not to contact them directly. So yeah, we definitely check for all of that. And the good thing with immigration is that the abuser never has to find out that we're doing anything. The immigration does not contact them to ask for their opinion, none of that. So that's a big worry of our clients who are victims, and they think, oh my gosh, is immigration gonna contact my husband? He says he's gonna write to immigration and say this and that. And that actually works in our clients' favors, because if their spouse is going to that degree to try to harm them, it actually kind of helps us use that as proof of also abuse, because abuse can also be control, you know, verbal, emotional, and those things always just have to be physical.
That is a really good point. I bet a lot of our viewers didn't know that you do think automatically that there's some credence to those threats, and then it backfires on those abusers.
Right.
It actually gives credence to your position.
Exactly, yeah.
Last question, when we're talking about these people who, again, are worried to come forward, how long would you say a lot of these types of cases that you all take when they're trying to plan ahead and say, okay, well, if I call now, how soon will I get away from this person? How long do these types of immigration cases take?
The immigration case itself, you mean, like, are you asking how long it takes to file and see a result, or how long does it take for them to get away from the abuser?
Well, both.
So most of my clients, because I'm doing the immigration part, they've already kind of left. They've already gone through the injunction process. Most of them, they've already gone through a shelter or left that relationship. Very few are still in that relationship. I do have some of those. But once I do get the case and I file, depending on the type of case, like if it's a U visa, it's taking 5 to 7 years to get through the process. But thankfully now they can get a work permit before that decision, but it's a long process, yes. VAWA clients is taking about 2 years to get a decision, but those clients do get a work permit, I would say, within the first 10 months of applying. Yeah, so it's a very long process.
But you're there with them.
Yes.
Through every step of the way.
Yes, of course.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you for
today.
having me.
I appreciate everything that you do. I know that we appreciate what you donate to the Orange County community by choosing to be at Legal Aid.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anna's dedication to providing legal services to people in our community who are underserved deserves to be acknowledged, and we are so thankful that she could join us to share her experience. Thank you to our viewers for watching, and for those joining us for the first time, welcome. And we hope that you will join us again. I'm your host, Jessica Thomas, and this is The Domino Effect.
A disproportionate number of Floridians don't have access to the justice system. That's why the Florida Bar Foundation exists to bridge this gap. Their mission is to increase access for the underprivileged by funding legal services, developing innovative tools and programs, and supporting legal aid providers and the courts. Because of their efforts, they've been able to help veterans facing homelessness, children in the foster care system, men and women who survived domestic violence, and securing benefits for our elderly and disabled. Doing good for the greatest in need, because everyone deserves access to justice.
The Legal Aid Society has existed for over 60 years, providing legal representation to clients on issues similar to those discussed in this episode. It is imperative that the community knows when faced with legal troubles, you are and should still be able to receive high-quality legal representation and access to justice regardless of your income. If you are seeking assistance on a legal matter, you may contact the Legal Aid Society Law Firm by calling 407-841-8310. The Legal Aid Society is a nonprofit law firm that relies greatly on volunteerism and donations. For more information on how you can support this worthy organization, visit legalaidocba.org. Today, thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Domino Effect. And remember, perpetual goodness goes a long way. See you next time.